I was in this bubble of people who did things a certain way, who thought a certain way. And I had to break free from that, because that trip, I learned so much about myself. And I learned that I was very much being ruled by fear. And Brené Brown says, we could choose courage or we can choose comfort, but not both at the same time. So which are you going to choose, courage or comfort?
Today's episode of The Pro Guide is brought to you by Small Pond Productions, the producers of this podcast. If you're looking to boost your brand's voice with professional end-to-end podcast production, whether it's an interview show or telling stories with audio, we walk you through every step of the process to make you sound great. Head to our website and download the free Podcasting Made Simple guide, 8 critical things you need to know before launching your brand's podcast. It's all available at smallpond.productions. Well, hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Pro Guide, where we listen to and learn from thought leaders in business, technology, creativity, and productivity. We're not niching, we're all over the place, but it's amazing because we get to hear the common thread through all of these, which is life stories of people that are passionate about what they do. And today is no different. Today we have Marielle Legair, and she is a speaker, a LinkedIn top voice, a neurolinguistic programmer, instructor, coach, and trained to equip people with the tools that they need to break through the barriers to excel in their career. Marielle, I am so honored to be able to hang out with you today, and honestly, a little bit nervous, as you can hear.
Oh, nothing to be nervous about. It's a lot of fun what you're doing. So thank you for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Me too. And honestly, the great hope here is that people can hear some of the commonalities between some of the threads that are showing up in your story and maybe where they find themselves, and draw some inspiration and hope for themselves. And I'd love for you to just kind of level set and start us off with, somebody comes up to you and they say, "Hey, Marielle, what do you do for a living?" How do you even begin to answer that? Because it's a wide, broad spectrum, and to be able to zero in and say something that's packageable, I know is sometimes a difficult ask.
Yeah, it sure is often a difficult ask. And to be honest, it depends. It depends on the audience and who I'm talking to. I often say that my superpower is equipping talent with the tools to elevate their visibility so that they can really shine doing work that they love. And to unpack that, I guess you could use my title. So like you said, I'm a LinkedIn top voice, which essentially means that I'm recognized by LinkedIn as being a thought leader in the area of career development. I'm also a LinkedIn Learning instructor, which means I teach courses on the LinkedIn Learning platform. But what I'm really passionate about is neurolinguistic programming, which is essentially about understanding the limiting beliefs that keep us stuck, the limiting stories, and helping people really clear those so that they can really reach their full potential. So that's what I really love to teach and help people work on.
I love it. And fun fact, and this is probably a lot of people's shared entry into NLP stuff, but back in the day, I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. So I at least have an idea of that world and that idea. I love the phrase you just used a little bit ago about tools, giving people the tools in their tool set. There's already talent inherent in there, and the idea that you're just equipping them with maybe some tools or some utilities that either they didn't know they had, or just a different or a new way of thinking about things. Can you give us maybe an example of what that might be, where somebody is, hey, I was thinking one way, and then there's a barrier, there's something that shows up here, and then now I'm thinking a new way?
Yeah, I definitely see it as tools, because I never take the credit for anybody having like a major breakthrough, because I feel like it's them doing the work. It's kind of me shining the light, if you will, or showing them the path, and they're actually the ones that take the steps. So in my work as a speaker, I've developed a framework which I call the 5 Ps of personal branding, and companies such as Amazon, BP, LinkedIn, obviously, and huge global brands, they invite me to teach my framework. And I often get feedback, and the main feedback is that, wow, you've really helped me see where I was keeping myself stuck and staying too much in my head. And for me, that is music to my ears, to be able to help people kind of see their blind spots. And because it's only with that level of self-awareness that we can then course correct and change our behavior. So that's always such rewarding feedback to receive.
That's got to be, it's got to be so rewarding, and what an honor too to hear Because I feel like most of the things that we look like, who needs to learn more things? It's like there's so much information online. It's like, I've got all the tools ever, but just being able to have that increased level of self-awareness and use that as the kind of the inflection point in the journey to set somebody free is so cool to hear. I loved, as I was reading on your website, you freely share your Myers-Briggs results. You mentioned that you're an INFP. That's the exact same type that I am. And full disclosure, I love interacting with new people. I get bursts of energy with speaking one-on-one or to a crowd of people. But the inspiration, kind of the renewal slice for the introvert extrovert does come from the introvert side of me, where I need to just kind of like close off in a cave and maybe eat a bowl of rice for a little while to figure out, like, okay, what's going on here? For you, in that INFP, where do you end up feeling like the inspiration for your keynotes, for your talks, for the times that you spend interacting with people? Where does that come from for you?
That's a great question. And I would say that it comes from a variety of places. So from my own personal experience, being born in the UK, right now I'm in London, and working my way through the city of London and realizing that actually I don't want to be in this environment. So then I relocated to New York City, and I got such a culture shock there because New York and London, the cultures are very, very different. And I was immediately thinking that they will be the same. They weren't. And so that was the starting point of my journey, because I realized that I didn't really have the tools or the skills to navigate my way in the corporate world. So my own journey is a big part of what I share and what I talk about, being an introvert. Obviously, somewhere in New York, which is such a noisy and very alpha, very loud city, I often found myself shrinking. So I really had to kind of learn how to self-advocate, how to use my voice more, and really just how to assert myself. Sometimes I didn't always feel comfortable doing that. And I realized, wow, there's so many other introverts in the world who don't necessarily have the tools to speak up or use their voice, or they may not feel comfortable. So that was a big part of the work that I do today. But also just interacting with people on the likes of LinkedIn. People share with me, oftentimes the things that they're struggling with. And it's just really helpful to have that feedback, because it helps you feel less alone. And I feel like there's a huge need to support introverted leaders and learners, because otherwise they will get left behind, unfortunately.
I love where that's coming from for you. I think authenticity recognizes authenticity. That's one of the reasons that maybe people feel compelled to, like, hey, I need to share some of my story with Marielle. If you would, I'd love for you to maybe zoom in on that transition piece. In your website, you talk about from 2013 to 2015, you start to get this entrepreneurial itch. You invest the $300 in the life coach that you're building your skill set, and then all of a sudden you get laid off from your current job. And take me back to that time, just kind of time travel with us too. So what takes you from this space of, oh no, it's almost scarcity because somebody's taking something from you, your job, you're being laid off, to actually, I realize there's more in me to give. There's this space of abundance, and I have a story to share, and I do have a voice, and it counts.
Yeah, I mean, again, that is such a big question. I'm going to try to simplify it.
Yeah.
But essentially, one of my life mantras is stay ready so you don't need to get ready. Stay ready so you don't need to get ready. And I had been preparing for the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario was being laid off from the job. I'm on a visa at that point, which ties me to that job, which means should I lose that job, I have to get on the first plane back home to London, right? So that's how much I needed that job to be able to legally stay in America, right? Thankfully, I had the foresight a few years prior to start preparing to get what's called an extraordinary ability green card, which is essentially what celebrities and government officials get if they want to live in America. But I feel like you may resonate with this, Andrew. Like, being an INFP means that you are quite delusional a lot of the time, right? I'm quite an imaginative person. I'm like, what is the best that can happen? So when people tell me, you will never get a green card, Marielle, like, oh, you're going to have to marry someone, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that, it's going to take you 10 years. Me and my delusional self was like, oh, of course it's possible.
Oh, that's all I needed, yeah.
So I applied to get that green card and I was able to get it within 18 months. So essentially, I was laid off from that job and the green card arrived 2 weeks later, which meant I could start my business. I could do what I could start. I could leave that company. It was totally fine, you know? So everything worked out. And it's because I had stayed ready before I needed to get ready. I had started laying those seeds 18 months prior by doing, I used to go to Toastmasters every lunchtime without fail because I was always pretty nervous about speaking, but I recognized if I wanted to have my own business, I would need to at least be able to communicate. I'll need to be able to get on camera. I'll need to be able to have sales calls and do whatever I needed to do. So for a whole year, I went to Toastmasters, and that was such an invaluable skill because we're always selling our ideas, whether it be in business or in the workplace. We need to be competent and confident speakers. So that was, while I was in that corporate role, in my cubicle, I was just plotting. I was just using that time to build the skills that I needed to prepare myself so that when the rug was pulled from under my feet, and I was ready. So it was all good.
Unbelievable. I love that something that could have been a terrifying and awful experience actually becomes this point of momentum to propel you further. And this idea that you were getting ready before it was time to get ready. Because if you get ready when it's time to get ready, it's too late.
Yeah,
You know?
Because corporate America literally like chewed me up and spat me out. Right? But because I had prepared myself, I couldn't imagine being laid off. And this is why I'm so passionate about the work I do and encourage people, you know, don't just network when you have to, when you feel that you need to. You should be very intentional about building relationships and cultivating what I like to call your board of advisors. These are people who can, help shape your career. They should consist of mentors. They should consist of sponsors, industry peers. Don't leave that to chance. Be intentional about cultivating relationships because you never know when you're going to need somebody. And you don't want to be that person that's just calling somebody when you're stuck.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
When your back is up against the wall, you want to be just very intentional and constantly building relationships because every opportunity you desire is going to come from another person. So we need to get good at building friends and influencing, right?
It's so great because I hear this theme of generosity kind of shining through your story, your message as it's showing up here. And I think when somebody's met with that obstacle, you know, they're laid off from their job or there's a significant emotional event that happens, that's this inflection point in their life, thinking like, what do I do next? And they get to decide, you know, what does this next chapter of my life actually mean? Can you take us back to your moment of maybe the first time, the first client, the first coaching session that you decide to do personal branding with them? And I know it's a little bit meta, but there's this sense in which the flywheel had been coming at you in one direction. And now you're making this point of decision saying, no, I'm coming from a point of abundance. I actually have that exact same gift to offer to everybody else. And so now what are you doing, thinking as you're sensing kind of maybe some of your own imposter syndrome as you're showing up for this first coaching client session? And can you talk to us through a little bit how you got through that? Because obviously it was successful and moved forward.
Another great question. And I think it really stems from recognizing, and it's something that I tell myself often and I tell my clients, that it's never about me. And that's a big lesson to learn because I feel like a lot of people make it about them. For me, it really is about my message. And it would almost be selfish of me to not show up for the sake of staying in my ego. I don't rule with ego. I rule with soul. I rule with passion. And that's what I lead with. And I think when you put those two things first, the mission is far bigger than me. So who am I to stay within my head and to let my ego rule?
Golly,
it just wouldn't. I'll be doing myself a huge disservice, not only myself, but also the millions of people that I could potentially reach with my message. So that's what I lead with. And don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily easy. I'm saying it, but it doesn't always feel, it's not always easy, because there's times when I don't feel good, or I've got low energy, or I'm burnt out, but I rest and I make sure that I'm very intentional about my rest, because I feel like I'm a very spiritual being, and I feel like we all have seasons, right? So I think it's also about recognizing the season that I'm in. Right now, I'm in a season of planting, right? So I'm not necessarily wanting to be that visible online right now. It's kind of about me kind of just sowing those seeds, and I will bloom again, as in the next few weeks or months. But for now, I'm just comfortable with kind of taking a step back and just resetting myself. I hope I answered the question.
You did. I mean, the reason I'm shaking my head is there's so many good directions I want to take this now, and I'm not sure where to take it. There's the slice of it that's the flexibility that you have to have, saying I'm not all this one person, but this is just a piece, a season, as you mentioned, that's showing up for me right now. But also this sense in which you're reframing the fear, which I think a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned, authentic people have. I mean, heck, who doesn't have it? And reframing that as selfishness. Who am I? And a lot of people that are operating out of fear are like, well, no, I'm not selfish. I'm actually wanting to give back. Well, okay, then don't let the fear win. And it's like, that's amazing.
No, I was just reiterating your point. I do believe it is so, so important, because the times when I look back, I have always, that when I felt stuck, is because I've been too caught in ego and too self-focused,
Yes. Was there a moment for you? Was there a time where you realized, yes, I am a lot of different things. I show up as a lot of different people or a lot of different identities, but at least for this season in my life, helping people with their personal branding, their journey, their self-advocation, is what I was created for. This is what I meant to do. Was there a moment where you had like this? I know that this is at the identity level. I am sure of this.
Yeah. I think I get that moment anytime I deliver a workshop or a talk, or anytime I'm on stage. It's just a reminder, because I feel the love, I feel the response from my work. That is all I need, really, because I'm very much about creating an impact. And I only feel that I could do that by serving others. And even though I do have skills in multiple areas, I feel like they really complement each other. Because for me, personal branding, I know that a lot of people may see personal branding as just being one thing, but I feel it touches on so many different things. And that's why I created my framework, the 5 Ps framework, because I really believe it needs to start with the mindset. So that is the first P, where I talk about performance mindset. So, what may be holding you back, what limiting stories may be keeping you stuck. And then we need to look at pitch, which is helping you create a strong elevator pitch or a value statement, getting clear on your story. And then we look at presence, so looking at your executive presence, but also your digital presence. In this digital climate, before meeting you, people are going to Google you. So we need to make sure that that is, up to par. And then the 4th P is looking at partnering, so how to network more effectively, because a lot of people aren't ever taught how to network, but relationships make the world go round. So if you don't know how to network, you're missing out. And then the 5th P is looking at planning, so helping people create a career visibility plan for themselves. So they're not just working head down in their job, but they are working on their visibility as well, because the two need to go hand in hand. And I think oftentimes we're just conditioned to just show up to work, head down, do a good job, but that's not enough. It reminds me of being in not that I ever worked in a factory, but like in the 1960s, like the whole production plants of being on a conveyor belt, that sort of you come in, you sit down, head down, do your job, and you leave. That isn't sustainable for anyone wanting to have a successful career. So we need to equip talent with the tools to really help them learn how to advocate for themselves. And that's essentially what my framework does. It kind of, integrates so many different areas, and I feel like they're all equally important.
I so appreciate you having the generosity to share that framework with us. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm grateful that you gave kind of people the taste of Like, these are different lenses that you can put over your career, yourself, to see not only how you should be advocating for yourself, but maybe that people may be viewing you that you don't necessarily realize that they may be, the factory worker mentality, where it's like, I'm just here to do a good job. My work will speak for itself. Like, these are things we tell ourselves.
Yeah. And it's quite outdated if you think about it. I mean, look, the pandemic showed us that no job is secure. The market is constantly evolving, and so should we, right? We shouldn't have that outdated mindset and expect to be successful, in my opinion.
Absolutely. In your view of success, one of the things that you mentioned is the digital world, kind of digital reputation management. A lot of people do see the highlight reel, but that is the expectation. Who wants to put out the messy parts of their lives. But when you think back about your life, when you think back about everything that you've gone through to kind of get to where you are today and where you're headed in the future, and it may or may not show up digitally for you, but is there a moment that you look back on and you're like, you know what, I really feel like that was one of my proudest times. That's one of the things I'm most proud of achieving in the course of my career so far.
Course of my career. I think when I look back at my career, I could see that there were, and it's funny because it reminds me of that Steve Jobs quote that we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And I feel it's so true because we do have to believe that they're all going to connect at some point and it's all going to make sense. And I think one of the big moments for me was quitting an unfulfilling job. This was 2010, quitting an unfulfilling job and traveling solo around Brazil. And I remember at the time, I had so many naysayers around me that were, what are you doing? Like, going by yourself? Because this was solo travel back then within my network wasn't really a done thing. So everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, are you okay? And I'm so glad that I did that by myself because I realized at the time that I was in this bubble of people who did things a certain way, who thought a certain way. And I had to break free from that because that trip, I learned so much about myself, and I learned that I was very much being ruled by fear. And Brené Brown says, we could choose courage or we can choose comfort, but not both at the same time. So which are you going to choose, courage or comfort? And since then, I've really just been choosing courage and pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. 2 years after that trip to Brazil, I then relocated to New York City in 2012, November 2012. And again, that was such a character building experience. First time working in corporate America. Probably won't do it again. But, it was such a great journey for me. So those two moments, and then I would say the third one would be getting the green card because everybody told me that I wouldn't get it, that I would have to marry somebody. And I did it all by myself. And that really, again, just showed me the importance of blocking out the naysayers and really just doubling down and just betting on yourself, So those would be a few things.
Marielle, I think of, I don't know about for you, but for me, when I hear that story, about courage or comfort, you can't have both. That the initial time, I know for myself, the times that I found that I've chosen courage, I get addicted to that, and then it becomes a little bit less difficult to choose courage the next time. For the folks that are listening and maybe they find themselves in a place that either they recognize some similarity with where you were in 2012 or, in the early 2010s, or they just have a space where they haven't quite figured out what their voice is yet or how to find their voice. What would you say to the person that says, it feels like you found that, and a lot of it comes down to just a decision that you ended up making during a time. How do I go about finding mine? What would you say to the person that maybe finds themselves in that space?
There's a few things. I think firstly, it's important to get curious because nothing is going to change until you really get curious and get intentional about going within, because it's all within you. You have all of the answers that you need. You just need to delve and really explore. I see it almost like buried treasure. So if you picture like a beautiful treasure chest and it's packed with gems and stones and everything, but it's packed, right?
That's right.
Because there's so many layers within this treasure chest, and it's each of our jobs to uncover that jewelry, that treasure that's buried deep inside of us, right? And no one can do that for us. It's our job to find what our purpose is, because we all have that magic within us. But I think sometimes we get so clouded by the external noise and everything else, the day-to-day responsibilities, that we don't take the time enough to really sit down and think, okay, who am I? Am I happy? Just those sorts of questions, those simple questions that are so, so important, because we spend so much time just on autopilot. So just get curious. And it may sound really corny, but to me, this was a huge game changer when I really sat down and I uncovered, like, okay, who am I at my core? How can I get more curious about myself? What story am I telling myself about why I can't do a certain thing? Is that story true? Or is it not? Really just asking those questions, those simple questions. But I think it really does start with curiosity and a willingness to kind of dig deep, right?
That's right.
To find out who we are at our core.
So good, Marielle. Like I feel like the inflection point, somebody gets laid off, significant emotional event. Yeah, it might, hurt a lot, but honestly, it might jar you out of autopilot too, which is a really huge gift. I think of the person that hears what you just said, and it's probably a double-edged sword where it's like, oh shoot, I really have been in charge this whole time, but also, man, that's awesome. Yeah. I can do anything I want to do to change that, and that's a gift.
Absolutely.
I feel like
it's so freeing. And I think sometimes we, especially being in the corporate world as well, and this isn't me bashing the corporate world, because there's so much to learn in a corporate environment, and I'm so, so grateful for all of the experiences I had in corporate. But I think sometimes we lose sight of our own identity in the corporate world, because, we have these big fancy titles, we have these big bonus packages and all of these things. It's very easy to become disconnected from yourself, from your soul. In the work that I do, I'm helping people get back to who they are at their core. And sometimes it's hard to do that by yourself. So another thing that I would say is to invest, like I did, in a career coach, because that was the best $300. At the time, it felt like a lot of money.
I feel like, oh no, what am I doing?
What do you? Yeah, I was like, what do you mean, $300? But I'm so glad I did, because she helped me really get clear on what my values were. And I had no idea what they were until working with a coach. And what she uncovered was, oh, actually, you're an entrepreneur at heart. You're a visionary. You're highly imaginative and creative. Being in a corporate bureaucratic environment is crushing your soul. And I had no idea, because I had spent the last 10 years in that sort of environment. That wasn't meant for me. But don't get me wrong, I learned things, but I was in the wrong environment. Why? Because I didn't know who I was at my core. So I think it's so important to work with somebody who can help you unpack that if you are, not sure of where to go, like I was.
That's so good. So good. I am so grateful when I was in my early 20s that there were people that cared enough about me to tell me things I didn't want to hear in order to make me the kind of person I really wanted to be. And those uncomfortable truths sometimes, oh yeah, you're making moves, but it's in the wrong direction. Like that really hurts to hear. But man, I'm so grateful for it after the fact. And I those are the kinds of things that really do transform you. And it's truth, it's truth that helps you. I know you're incredibly busy. I'm so grateful for everything you've shared right now, because there are so many nuggets here. I have to, when I'm in the I mode, need to go back into the cave and actually listen back to this episode to process everything you said.
Oh, sure.
But I would love to give you just kind of a final platform, a billboard, words of wisdom. Just, you can wave a magic wand and have everybody in the world just instantly get one concept. I know, and you can only pick one. What would that be for you?
Yeah, just one. I guess based on everything that I've shared, the common theme is that the magic is within you. It's not outside of you, it's within you. And I feel like it's within each of us to really explore how we could showcase more of our magic, because I think the world needs more of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the authenticity that's there. Yeah. I love it. And what a great thing to pick. Marielle, how can people connect with you, find out more what you're up to, and just get more? Because you have a lot more that you talk about. If they find that they're really interested in what you've been saying here, where they can hear you talk about it at a lot deeper and more nuts and bolts kind of a level.
Yeah, well, I've just launched my YouTube channel, which is just Marielle Legair, and I'm also very active on LinkedIn as well. So there will be my two main social media platforms. And thank you, Andrew, for bringing me on. It's been such fun. I really liked your questions. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been a blast. Thank you so much, Marielle. And our thanks to all of you for listening. If you're looking for a quick way to make our day, a review in iTunes or subscribing to this podcast would mean the world to us. Our thanks to Small Pond Productions for sponsoring. And this was the Pro Guide. Learn from leaders, change your life. See you, everybody.